So Beyond Bars is a piece of theatre which goes into prisons and explores themes of freedom, forgiveness and faith. And it's a real privilege to be able to use theatre as a different medium to help these guys really grapple with these issues, which are so important in them starting again and figuring out their new path and what life looks for them once they finish the sentences.
The conversations we had were particularly revealing. One thing it revealed several times was that they don't see their self-worth anymore. There was a gentleman in the very first prison we went into, we prayed with them, and this gentleman prayed as well, and he said that he knows that the outside world sees them all as the scum of the earth, and maybe they are the scum of the earth, and that's the bit that stuck with me, the fact that he said maybe we are, but he was so grateful to God that he had brought us to see them, and obviously we got to affirm for him that that's not who they are and they've got so much worth. Another gentleman that stood out was a man in his 50s. He had been in prison 2 or 3 decades ago for a small period of time and had been out living a good life, and unfortunately was suffering from some alcohol problems, and during a drunk period he had smashed a cathedral window. He felt that maybe he couldn't be forgiven, or God couldn't forgive him because of what he'd done, and so I was able to tell him that Jesus cares about him more than a cathedral window, and just seeing how that affirmation really comforted him was a truly touching thing. Yeah, it was a beautiful thing to be involved with.
So in the first prison that I was in the first workshop, I spoke to 2 guys, and they both shared with me that they had lost really close friends of theirs. Both of their friends had been murdered, completely different stories, but they'd both been on a real battle with it and had been really angry at the men who murdered their friends, and had been really angry at God for a while. But they both said that over a long journey and a long battle, they had come to forgive the men who murdered their friends, and they'd actually been able to lean on Jesus in that situation and find true peace. And that was a real challenge for me, because there are some things in my life that I really struggle to forgive people for. So as much as we're going in to teach these guys about forgiveness, I actually left learning something about forgiveness, and it's great that we can learn that together.
So yes, in the show and in the workshop we do talk about faith, forgiveness and freedom, and naturally, whilst obviously looking through a Christian perspective, these guys aren't always from a Christian background. Some of them are on a journey. Maybe they haven't quite solidified their faith, and others may not have faith at all, or even a different faith. So naturally we do find rejection. However, there was this one guy in particular who was kind of full of anger, full of hate, and he felt like he couldn't forgive himself for some of the things that he had done. And he couldn't find forgiveness for his family for leaving him there in prison. And through this kind of anger, as I was talking to him with the Bible and talking about Jesus, he didn't really want to hear it. He was kind of rejecting the things I was saying, kind of argued against me a couple of times. However, towards the very end of the conversation, unprompted, he turned to me and said, actually, I would love to learn to pray. I would love to learn to pray for forgiveness for myself, so he could move on, and he wanted to learn to pray for forgiveness of his family, so again he could start a new journey, but on a more solid path.
It's a real privilege to be able to do the work, and one of the things that's impacted me is how much the guys relate to it. In particular, the character Carl, who Jake plays. Jake does a great job of portraying an inmate. He's even been asked regularly whether or not he's done time himself. Got told off for using the staff toilets once because he looked too convincing. But it's great to see the guys relating to that. One guy in particular even told me about how the issues that Carl was struggling with were exactly the kind of issues he was dealing with. In the show, Carl has received forgiveness for his crimes and doesn't know how to process that, doesn't know how to deal with it. And this guy had received forgiveness recently from his family and didn't know how to process it. He was an angry guy. So it was a real honour to be able to have a conversation with him and talk to him about accepting that forgiveness. You know, we believe that Jesus offers forgiveness and a new start for all of us, but an important part of how that works is accepting that forgiveness, and having those discussions was a really important thing.
They've got so much worth, and that was wonderful for us, and kind of straight away highlighted the importance of the work we were doing.